Good morning, Brighton! Yes, we have left our back bedrooms and we have hit the road. Well, we haven't because there was no petrol. So we hit the rails and we've come down to Brighton to bring you the Starmer Party Conference and the Labour News Agenda. Or is that the Labour Party Conference and the Starmer News Agenda? I don't know, they'll tell us, I'm sure. We are down here now to talk about what's happening this week, the biggest stuff at the Labour Party Conference, and we've got some special guests. Joining me today is Shadow Justice Secretary and Labour MP for Tottenham, David Lammy. Morning, David.
Good morning, lovely to be
Say
here.
hello to our lovely...
Hello,
I won't put my hand in front of our second camera again.
Hello, great
Technical
to be
stuff has yet to be sorted out. We have some regular viewers who come here all the time. So normally it's just Mirror journalists they're seeing yakking away. We've got someone special. So we're going to go through the biggest stories of the day. We want you to ask us your questions. So dig into the comments, ask us about what's going on in the news, and we will do our best to answer these things for you. So what have we got today? Well, the Mirror has splashed on what happens when Grant Shapps tells everybody not to panic, which is widespread panic. Despite the fact there is plenty of petrol, 1 in 4 petrol stations has no petrol at all. It might take 10 days to calm down, we're told, and in the meantime lots of people who need fuel can't get it, which is why I had to come on the train at 4 o'clock this morning. Now, David, the Tories are not having a good week, obviously, but but what would the Labour Party be doing differently? Right now, if you had this crisis, what would you guys be doing better?
Before we get to that, let's just start as to why we've got the crisis. We've got the crisis because promises were made in terms of the Brexit deal, and they're not being delivered. And now we've got shortages of HGV drivers, we've got shortages of fruit pickers, we've got shortages in building supplies, we've got shortages of caterers. Right across the country there are skills gaps. So the first point is Labour would have got a different Brexit deal and we wouldn't be in this mess in the first place. And that is absolutely fundamental. I mean, look, in terms of...
it's not just Brexit, because there's systemic problems
there
with the
are
haulage industry.
There are systemic...
20 years in the making.
Oh, come on.
Hauliers say.
How's it just come together now, suddenly? Just, of course, there may be issues about salary and wages, but we've got an unholy mess. It's largely because of Brexit, in my view. But then, and I worry sometimes about journalists not wanting to call it what it is. But let me just say, you've got to look round corners. We actually had a fuel problem under Tony Blair, and we acted. You've got to look round corners. You've got to anticipate, and it appears that the government have anticipated nothing. I got up with my wife yesterday morning at 6:30. We always sneak out the house on a Sunday morning because the kids are asleep. We sort of,
just run away.
just
for the day.
Just pretend that we're just a couple again. And we usually get a coffee and and fill up. And we hadn't really thought about the petrol. So we we went to the petrol station, it was shut, we went to another petrol station, we drove 5 miles basically, ended up in Frying Barnet and queued for 2 hours, fretting the whole time that the kids would be up and what was going on in the house and all the rest of it. And we finally got some petrol. So I think this is a disaster, an absolute disaster, right across the country, and very, very seriously. I spent a lot of time thinking, what do you do if you're in the emergency services, you need fuel and you can't get it? So it is chaos. I think we would have never have got into this mess in the first place. We would have anticipated it. We would have seen, look forward. And it's about supplies. It's about coordination. And obviously, it's about salaries, wage, conditions. I used to be a skills minister. You work with sector skills councils. You're on these issues because you're on the detail. But that's all long-term building forward stuff, which hasn't happened. If you were actually here now, and Starmer has suggested more visas for HGV drivers to come into Europe. You've got to have more visas. But that's just. I said that on Question Time last week. But that assumes there's HGV drivers just desperate, queuing up, trying to get here to work. There's shortages on the continent. Why wouldn't they just work nearer to home? There are no queues on the continent. No, but they've got shortages. So I mean, if they want to work, they'll be there. The fundamental point is there are no queues on the continent, and we know that because of red tape and a whole load of nonsense, a lot of drivers. Albanian, Romanian, Eastern European, are not there in the system anymore as a result of Brexit. So I think that there's a collision of a lot of issues coming together in this country. No one is queuing in France for petrol. No one is queuing in Germany for petrol. They're waiting for a new leader. Just us. So it turns out the EU was holding the country together all along. What a surprise. Now, moving on to conference news, and on page 6 and 7 spread, we've got the latest developments that came from yesterday. It's lots of stuff on there. It's worth a good read. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, David, but conference was supposed to be about reforming the party rules a little bit, projecting unity, and putting all the squabbles and the infighting of the past behind you. And what we've had is Keir Starmer with his head buried in the rule book. Angela Rayner has got the scummy party clutching their pearls. And we seem to have lots of rows still that are going on and on. How do you think it's going so far? We are only halfway, of course. Well, look, I think in the end, the Labour Party conference, as it's currently configured, and there were rule changes under Jeremy Corbyn that took us back, if you like, to the sorts of conferences we were having in the 70s, is basically a negotiation held in public. And Keir put some rule changes on the table. And I'm very pleased that he got through those rule changes. Some of them, not all of them. We can now look outward. Now, there were compromises, of course, but we can look outward into the country. But that's effectively what happened. As for the sort of noise around Angela Rayner, I mean, I'm just a little bit, I'm feeling a little bit sort of, sympathetic to her on one level, because Boris Johnson has said all sorts of extraordinary, horrendous things about people. Calling Muslim women bank robbers, talking about black people with Piccaninny watermelon smiles. Priti Patel had a go at lawyers last year, do-gooders, activist lawyers. You might remember that we had someone wielding a knife go into an immigration law firm just after she'd said those statements. And I didn't see the coverage around those issues that we're seeing in relation to Angela. It's not quite the language I would have used, and I can be pretty fruity about my Conservative. Well, scum is just the stuff that rises to the top, isn't it? I would have thought that's exactly what the Conservative Party's all about, is people rising to the top. It's a very windy day in Brighton, and you can see quite a lot of scum on the water. Yeah, I'm not quite sure that's what she meant necessarily. Now, there's some stuff in this spread. Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves yesterday talking about reviewing lots of different tax reliefs: inheritance tax, capital gains tax, trying to sort of change some of the thresholds, pension tax relief. And the real headline grabber is Keir talking about taxing private schools and treating them as the businesses we all know they are, rather than charities, which may seem fair enough. But it's a bit wishy-washy. It's a review. When are we going to get a concrete promise? Well, look, in a sense, all of us have been dominated by the pandemic. I thought the decision that Boris Johnson made on national insurance was the beginning of return back to politics as normal. We haven't had politics as normal for a long time. It was all Brexit, then all pandemic. So I think it's great that she's looking at tax relief. I think it's very good that she's made the announcement around private schools. People are allowed to choose where they want to send their kids. We live in a plural country, but I don't think that in the end what are for-profit schools should have a sort of tax break, really.
No, yeah. That seems fairly concrete though, but I think a lot of people want some really solid promises, and we've got a lot of open goals we should be putting things in.
I think that's fair enough, and I think that we will have to accelerate that up to about Christmas. And I say that because there are some rumours that we might be having a general election next year, and we have to be ready. And that the public have to kind of hear about Labour policy long before it's in the manifesto. One of the problems we had at the last general election is that we were announcing things like free broadband, a 4-day week, and they were like, I didn't know about. How's that costed? I didn't ask for that. And we don't want to be in that situation again.
People don't read the manifesto, do they?
They want it. They get a tonal sense of where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Basically, long before you get to the general election, and then what you're saying isn't really a surprise.
Yeah. And keep asking us your questions, everybody. What do you think about what David's saying about taxing private schools? What do you think about how Labour should be tackling the fuel crisis? Let us know. I've got a very tiny question I can just pick in and read here. Better for Britain, I don't think it's his real name, saying, is David looking forward to going up against karate black belt Dominic Raab?
I can't wait. I cannot wait. Bring it on.
He's a lawyer with 2 law degrees, though, David, so he must be clever.
Please.
You'll be okay, you reckon, then? Isn't he Harvard and Oxford, Harvard and Cambridge?
Oh, please. I can't
Does it make a difference?
stand that pretentious stuff. Anyway, I'm Harvard. No, it's the substance of what he's about, and he's got these bizarre plans on human rights. We know that much. I think he can be really quite tricky kind of customer. It'll be really interesting to see if he endears himself to the legal community, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, good luck anyway. Now, finally, on page 15 of the Mirror, and this is your territory, the Law Society is reporting that millions of people are in what they're calling legal aid deserts. Down in the bottom left corner of that page, it's worth digging it out and having a look today. Even barristers sometimes finding that legal aid payments often mean they're working for little or nothing, and the justice system, people's access to it seems to be on its last legs. So, David, Shadow Justice Secretary, what would you do different?
Well, the first thing is you can't talk about levelling up the country if people can't get access to justice, if there are huge swathes of the North East, the North West, the Midlands, where you can't find a law centre and you've got to drive for a lot longer even than this fuel crisis to find a legal aid lawyer. And then if you are a legal aid lawyer, many of them are leaving the profession basically because they can't actually make a living. The first thing, we do think that there should be an independent pay review body, by the way, for lawyers. It shouldn't be the government determining rates. There haven't been any rate increases for 20 years. It's not surprising that people are turning away from legal aid. I can't announce what our spending would be on legal aid today. I wish I could, but I wouldn't get the say-so from Rachel Reeves. But I certainly have reiterated time and time again that I recognise that there's a significant problem. There's another area, and it's where people don't quite qualify for legal aid because the thresholds are quite low, so you can still be working poor and not get legal aid, by the way. And we've got to do better around pro bono. There's some changes that the Australian Party, our Labour Party, made when they were in government to the pro bono system. There they created something a bit more national, a bit more integral, and it did make a difference for those who actually in the end wouldn't qualify for legal aid anyway.
Very quickly, personal bugbear, would you reverse the Conservatives' legal aid cuts for domestic abuse victims?
Yes.
News. Right, now finally, keep asking us your questions. David's here, we've got him for another 5 minutes. If you've got anything you want to ask him that is polite, don't be rude. If I get any trolls, I will deal with you in my normal fashion with a quick spanking. Don't let that encourage you. We do get them sometimes, David, you'll be amazed. But first off, there is some good news, and here it is. Well, it's sort of good news. Daniel Craig here is talking about turning his back on Bond and the end of his career as 007. But this does mean, of course, that there is an opportunity for someone else to fill the super spy's boots. And over there on the right-hand side, Bond producer Barbara Broccoli is saying it can never be a woman. Now, David, I don't see why not, because there are many brilliant, flawed, alcoholic women with a violent streak, and I am available.
You are one of them.
I am available for a £200 million payday. I'll do it. It's fine, Barbara. Just ask. And frankly, if you want someone really unlikable who survives against the odds, I think Peppa Pig could probably manage it. Who would be your pick for a new Bond?
I quite like James Norton. I really like him as an actor.
He's been a vicar.
Yeah, but he's also been in Mafia. He's just really versatile. I'm a little bit biased because I know him a little bit. He's mates with
You're trying to get a mate a job.
He's mates with a mate, so I might get to those premieres if he gets it. No, but I think he's a really good actor. I like him. I also like Tom Hiddleston. He's really good. Yeah. So, and he's quite posh.
Yes, he's got the posh thing, and he's got the low-key, slightly mad thing going on.
So
but whether he's rough enough.
If I was putting money on it, I think I might go for him.
I think a brilliant, flawed, sexy.
Obviously there's a bit of me that wants to push Idris Elba, but I just think
it's too old to put a hip out.
Yeah, and he's a little bit too cockney. He's not quite.
Yeah.
He's not really. Yeah.
He's not got it. There we go. Sorry, Idris. David says you don't have it. There we go. Have you got any more questions? We've got some here from Mike. Morning, Mike. I've got it. Sorry, the computer I'm looking at is so far away. Mike says, we know there is a Europe-wide shortage of drivers, but strangely my friend in Germany has seen no shortages of food or fuel. He agrees with you.
Thank you, Mike. Absolutely.
I wonder what's different about the UK to cause this crisis. Is it the fact that we are world-beating and have a government of all the talent? Who knows?
Talent's outside the government.
We'll find out, won't we? Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you, David, for joining me.
Thank you.
This is good. We have this quite often. You should come back. We have other Greg's cold bacon batties available next time. Now, 2:30 this afternoon, we're doing another one of these Facebook Lives with the Epilepsy Society, talking about pregnancy and motherhood and epilepsy medications. 1 in 10 of us will have a seizure at some point in our lives. It affects a lot of people. Do tune into the Mirror's Facebook pages for that. At 3:30 tomorrow afternoon, we'll be doing one of these live with a live audience at the Caroline of Brunswick pub with comedian Mark Steele. So if you're in Brighton, come down and join us. You should come, David. We'll get you on the stage.
David Lammy said hi.
We will. And on Wednesday at 9 o'clock, we will be doing one of these again with Emily Thornberry on the last day of the conference. So, and the Mirror's doing some other stuff while we're here as well. Lots of other fringe events, so do tune in. Thank you again for joining us, David. Thank you everyone for watching. A bit late, but we'll see you again later today. Bye-bye.